This is the video review for Transformers Dark of the Moon Deluxe Class Soundwave. Soundwave is a really nice car. I really like the shape of it, I really like the sculpting on it, and for the most part, the panel lines make sense. Most of them look like they really would on a car. The only ones that are kind of out of place is this line up here, the lines back here, and these two bits here. Otherwise, it looks great. And for the most part, this car mode sticks together very well. All the parts go where they're supposed to pretty easily. The only places where this isn't true is right here, and sometimes right here. This side goes together just a little bit less so than the other side. It's a little bit strange. As for complaints, I kind of wish that this windshield had a tint to it so that you couldn't see inside, and it made it look a little bit less like a model and more like a real car. And also this gray, it's kind of a boring gray. It's unpainted, it's not silver, it's not as bland as Dark of the Moon Deluxe Class Sideswipe because it's not a dull gray. It has a nice shine to it, so it looks decent, but it could be a lot better. This is the underside, and if you look, it's actually pretty hollow in here. I mean, it has a decent amount of heft, but well, that's pretty hollow. The car mode rolls really nicely, and overall, I really like it. This is his MechTech weapon, and it is also really neat. I like the shape of it for a gun, and it's really nice and big, too. And I like how it transforms and what it turns into. Booyah! I like how much moves around, and how much it changes, and how fast it does it. And I like what it turns into, a dish. Some kind of dish. I forget what these are called, but a dish. Now, this is one instance where I actually don't mind that it doesn't lock into place, because I'm never going to pose him pointing this at someone. So, the MechTech gimmick here is just kind of a interesting little time waster for me, just a little fun thing to do. And the MechTech ports here, they have the nice little spring-loaded plugs, but if you push this in, that's as far as you can get it in, because otherwise you start ramming into robot bits, and it's just kind of wibbly-wobbly, so not too big of a deal, because I don't like guns just hanging off of cars like this. It ruins the cohesiveness of the car, so oh well. And the transformation for this guy is really neat. I really like it, especially the legs. The torso has some kind of difficult parts to it, where parts will start crashing into each other and popping off if you don't quite know what you're doing, but once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. To begin, pull this up and forward. Now, the first time I did this, I pulled it up this much, and I thought this was good enough. Now, you need to bring it way up like this. Otherwise, you'll start running into problems with the robot mode later on. And then you want to take these bumper pieces, pull them out and around. Then come to the side, push it down, and rotate back. Do the same on the other side. And you have these big, long monstrosity legs. Now what you want to do is, you see these circles here, there's a circular indent on each of the legs. You want to put them into the indent, and then bend this back like this so it all pegs together. Like that. Then bend this, bring it up, and there's a little hole here and a peg here. Tab it together, and I really like the way that works. And what's also nice about it is that it makes the foot an angle like a lot of the animated figures had. So even with the legs spread wide out, the feet are flat on the ground. And it's nice that they're bringing that back from animated. I would have preferred a ankle swivel, but for how neat this transformation is, we'll pull the trunk bits down to form the feet. For how neat the transformation is, I think it works pretty well. So now we've done the really cool part, the legs, and now we need to work on the more frustrating part, the upper body. What we do is we bend these down and pull these bits out. Take the hood, pull it back, and then what we need to do is rotate these forward like this. And this will be to get them out of the way so that we can, well, first push up the head like this. And now that these bits are out of the way, we can rotate these back. And you really need to do this because that keeps them out of the way for the next couple of steps. Fold this bit out and then fold the front of the car in, and then start folding this down. And come on. And as you're doing that, once you get clearance, you want to bend the shoulders onto his back. Not quite his back, but his shoulders onto his shoulders. And it's a lot harder than I made it look, and there are a lot of parts you really need to take into account. But you just kind of need to get into hands to understand how everything's supposed to move. It's a very awkward show on camera. I've done pretty much the best I can do, and I've done multiple takes of this. Then you will push this up and make sure this white tab ends up under the head mount. Then kind of straighten these out and bring the arms down, rotate them forward, arms down, rotate them forward, and we have a robot mode. Let's get them all stood up in a stoic manner, and this is Soundwave. I really like the way he looks. And while I was complaining about the lack of tint on the windows in car mode, having them be just clear, no coloring, allows him to, despite having this big mass of kibble on his back, which is unfortunate, it allows him to preserve quite well his silhouette in robot mode. And that, I think, is worth it. Now, this guy has 4 problems with his robot mode. Some of them are really bad, some of them not so much. The first problem is just how much kibble he has. And what's really bad about it is this part right here ends up between his legs. If you push it forward, which you will do when you're just holding this guy, it'll come between his legs like this, and it actually doesn't get in the way that much, because if you, well, except for this little bit here, which will catch on the windshield, but that'd be easy enough to shave away with a knife. The kibble will move back if you move his leg back. And then there's really no reason to move his legs further together than this, so this doesn't really get in the way. It's just ugly. And it feels like it should get in the way. That's the first problem. The second problem is he doesn't have much of a heel, so he can have balance issues, but he does have a toe joint here that's pretty tight, so he's not just going to collapse onto the joint like this when you pose him around, so he has enough posability to compensate for a minimalist heel. The third problem is that these side view windows will bump into his arms, and that's more of an annoyance. So I've contemplated cutting those off. I haven't done it yet, but I kind of want to. And the fourth problem is more of an aesthetic one. I like the way he looks, but his chest really needs to be wider, because it's just so strange having, here's his chest, and then a big gap between where his chest is and his arms are. And that's just, it's kind of strange. It's not that big of a deal, but it is a nitpick for me. Now for his posability for the most part is really nice. This can rotate all the way around and go, not as far out as I would like, but it does go out. I suppose you'd call that a fifth problem, but yeah, oh well. It goes out enough. And then he has 90 degrees at the elbow. He has a bicep swivel, and the inside of his arm here is ball jointed, so you can do poses like this, like boo hoo hoo, or yes, I just killed an Autobot. Then he also has a wrist swivel, which it's not that useful, but it can be useful for some character poses. So, despite this limitation going outward, his arms have a lot of posability, which is why it's not that big of a deal that it can't go out that far. The head can rotate 360, and because it's more of a cylinder shape than anything else, it doesn't bump into the backpack pieces here, these shoulder blade pieces here. And I really like the way this turned out here. And then his legs, he goes forward, back, out, a bicep swivel, 90 degrees here, and you get the foot articulation. So, really, he's quite articulated. I like how he turned out, and he just looks really cool. He is a really neat figure. In spite of his flaws, and really, this is a big flaw, and what's mind-blowing about this flaw for me is that it would have been so easy to put a hinge right here so it could fold up, and then it wouldn't really be that big of an issue. I mean, yeah, you'd have this hanging down, but it's clear, and it's, for the most part, out of the way of the legs, so that one thing right there is just kind of frustrating. I wish they had put just that littlest bit more effort into him, because that would take him from being just a really damn good figure to a great figure. And let's see. In this mode, he has Mech Tech ports up here, which are the weapon's a bit too big for that. A lot too big. That's kind of the problem with this weapon. I don't really knock it against him because I don't really care about the Mech Tech weapons, but his gun is just a little bit too big for him. I mean, it's almost a Voyager-sized Mech Tech gun, which is kind of surprising, because he's not a small Deluxe either. He's pretty, I mean, the car mode's pretty big, the robot mode's pretty big. I mean, car mode's kind of hollow, but it doesn't feel too light, so that gun's just way too big for the figure. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it'd have been nice if it were a bit more in proportion so it looked more natural holding it. I mean, I understand BFG and all, but it doesn't really look comfortable for him to hold it. Well, I suppose I'm complaining about not much at all, because I don't really play with him with a gun anyway. Yeah, this has been the review for Dark of the Moon Deluxe Class Soundwave. Thank you for watching.